So I work as a financial advisor. I'm a chartered financial planner. And I remember going into there and saying to them, well, look, I plan to go into the investment side of things, investment planning. And they sort of laughed at me because from day one, I guess, when I first started, I had a vision of where I wanted to get to in the end. But then I remember that year in, going to 𝐸𝐷 namaz, and the Imam talking about interest and how dealing in interest is waging a war on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet, peace be upon him.
Because you were using the word interest in your advice or in your day-to-day work, and this pain or the pinch was increasing. It's like, really? Like, okay, am I right?
You manage to light 3 and then finally manage to find the light switch, but only to realize there's another door there. And behind that door is another dark room. But what price are you prepared to pay? But that's the whole purpose when it comes to, fiqh in Islam with respect to business, is the cornerstone of doing business is being fair.
There is this stereotyping of men being these like a rock. And I don't have any emotions. Emotion is a girly thing.
They paid £50,000 per room to kit out a room for video conferencing. Yes, we do need to be strong and we do need to be firm, but we do need to be kind as well. And we do need to show our children that we do care and we do love them.
And most of the people don't even know. They think stock market is the way or the crypto is the way, and right now Bitcoin is going up. And so yeah, let's throw all the money in there.
Problem is, if they were to die tomorrow, there's a £1.5 million inheritance tax liability.
When you look at the returns, rate of returns, rental seems to be the least return investment. And the implicit answer to the question of managing emotion is Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Naveed.
Jazakallah khair for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
Okay, mashallah. The vast interactions I've had, some amazing inspirational things that you're doing. I wanted to bring this to life. I wanted to other people to benefit from it, and then especially inspiring the current and the next generation, making better choices. So we'll structure this in a kind of a framework that we have.
Yeah.
It's all about your life story, how you became what you have become, what role has the environment played in your parents and elders, and especially mentors have played.
Yeah.
And then the 4 things we'll talk about is your soul set. How do you manage your purpose and spirituality? How do you manage your learning, which is mindset, then your emotions with the heart set, and your health with the health set.
Sure.
Hopefully, inshallah, that will give us a holistic view of how you have achieved so much and being a top professional in your field.
Sure.
You will then hopefully inspire the next generation making that space.
Inshallah. Amin.
Yes. Yes. Go ahead. So tell us about your life history.
I mean, I can go back to the mid-80s if you want, right?
Yeah, we can. We can start.
No. So, all right, my history, who I am, what do I do? I'll start with that. So, I work as a financial advisor. I'm a chartered financial planner, which basically means I provide financial education as well as opportunities for financial planning with respect to investments, retirement, and general sort of holistic financial planning for individuals. How did I get here? I think I'll go back at the beginning of my journey within sort of banking and finance, which started about 13 plus years ago. I sort of fell into this role, to be honest, into the banking sector. It wasn't something that I pre-planned beforehand. I think I got made redundant from one job. A friend of mine, we met up in the evening, and he told me of a job vacancy that became available within the bank. So I decided, well, look, to make a good impression, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go see the bank manager the following day with a copy of my CV in person, handed it into them, which then sort of subsequently she told me how to apply online. Applied for it, and then that got me within the interview. I did do a bit of research beforehand in terms of what the actual job entailed and what the other opportunities were within the bank. And I remember going into there and saying to them, well, look, I plan to go into the investment side of things, investment planning. And they sort of laughed at me because if you imagine from a position perspective, it's sort of 3-4 positions up the ladder. So it's from an aspirational perspective, it's quite high, and not very many people get there. But anyhow, so I got the job. But from day one, I guess, when I first started, I had a vision of where I wanted to get to in the end, and is then sort of trying to set out the steps of how I was going to progress to that. So I started off as a personal banker. You're dealing with current accounts, banking products, home insurance, loans, that type of things. And for me, I decided before I got into financial advice and investment planning, the next stage for me was to look into mortgage advice, because when I provided clients advice, I wanted the advice to be as all-encompassing as much as possible. So, I understood everything before I sat in front of someone to give them advice about the investments and general life planning. So then, off my own back, I started doing my education and my studies for my, they call it CMAP, which is the Certificate for Mortgage Advice and Protection. I started paying for that and started doing that in my own time. And so this was quite early in my career. But then I remember like one day, a year into banking, and amongst Asian families, right, certain careers are preferred. Your accountants, your lawyers, your doctor. Banking, because you work in a bank, it's a more respected career. So, it's something at the time that my dad was quite happy about. But then I remember that year in, going to Eid al-Fitr namaz, and the Imam talking about interest and how dealing in interest is waging a war on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet, peace be upon him. And that sort of, that shook me up a bit. I was thinking, is what I'm doing like that bad? So that planted a seed for me. So that was there in the background. But on the foreground, I was still progressing with my career, still doing my studies and everything else. So I progressed from personal banker, went into mortgage advice. And day in, day out, you're discussing with people, this is the rate of interest you're going to pay every single day. That's all you're doing every single day.
Okay.
And there was a few of us, Muslim brothers, a few of us within the banking institution. And, we discussed it from time to time. And it was something that concerned us, all of us to a smaller or bigger degree. It concerned all of us. And from my perspective was, look, how do I get out of this? Because I've come to a certain stage in my career. I've got certain liabilities. I'm married. I've got a house. I've got bills. I've got all of that stuff to pay. If I jump off and go to a different career, I'm starting right from the beginning.
Yes.
So how do I jump off in a way, but then sustain my income? And I thought to myself, well, look, actually, the investment side of things, that my goal from the beginning, that could be the way to jump off and to move into sort of doing that in an Islamic way. So I remember speaking to a mufti, quite a prominent mufti in the Islamic finance space within the UK. And he said to me at the time, well, look, if your intention is there to then move into the Islamic space, and in the interim, in order to get the training and get yourself, knowledgeable, you need to go through conventional space, then that's permissible, as long as the interest is there, as long as, you're doing it for the purpose of moving into the Islamic side of things. So alhamdulillah, that gave me quite a bit of peace, knowing that actually, what I'm doing is not, given my goal of moving into the Islamic side of things, as long as my intentions were pure, I wouldn't say not have to worry about the interest. Obviously, you still need to worry about it, but it gave me a bit of relief. It gave me a bit of peace. So mortgage advisors did that for 3.5 years. Then I moved into the financial advice space. I worked for a number of different firms within sort of my 7-8 years as a financial advisor. And then when I finally decided to jump off and to go into the Islamic side of things, I thought it was going to be a piece of cake. I thought, advisors come in two forms, right? You have restricted advisors, you have independent advisors. So restricted advisors can only sell a small range of products, a restricted range of products, whereas independent, you can do anything and everything. So I thought, if I go into independent, that's it. I go with an independent firm, I can do everything. And I did, in the interview, I did say to them, look, my plan is to move into the Sharia space. Is that something that you guys can, is that something that I can do? The interviewers, one of them said yes, the other one said, I don't know.
The other one said, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I thought, being a bit positive about it, I thought, yes, no, jump, let's do it. And then once I was with the new firm, within the first 2 months, I realized I couldn't. It wasn't possible.
It wasn't possible.
It wasn't possible. So when I spoke to compliance were like, well, you can do it, but not under our company. You can do it under a subset of our company. I won't go into the technicalities of it. But even then, what we'd want you to do is the funds that are signed off as Sharia compliant, we want you to then do due diligence to confirm that Sharia compliant.
Okay.
So it's like, you buy something from the shop, from Tesco, something that says gluten-free on the label, but then asking for the shopkeeper to prove that it's gluten-free as well.
Oh.
So that's what they were asking.
Yeah.
The label says Sharia compliant, but they're not happy. They wanted me then to do extra due diligence to confirm it's Sharia compliant. And it was just, all they were trying to do was put hurdles on the way, just to make it more difficult. So I soon realized, actually, this wasn't the right network for me. And the way that it works within financial services is we have, you can be directly authorized with the regulator, or you can work under a network. If you work under a network, you've got to pay them a cost, but they do all the due diligence. They deal with the FC side of things. They give you a framework, all the compliance. They do all of that stuff. So it frees you up to spend a lot more time with the clients. And as a new business, network, under a network was the most efficient way for us to do it. So having realized actually this company that I was working with, I couldn't do it, then I thought, well, I'm going to go into the wider space to see what the networks available. And there's about 20 odd networks available in the UK. And I went, I started researching them. But meanwhile, while I was researching, I did have an email come through one day. And the email said, with a firm that I was working through, and they've said, fantastic news, we won a contract, a compliance contract with an external network.
Okay.
And this network, I'd never heard of them. And so given that I'd never heard of them, I was intrigued to find out who they were. So went to Google, typed the name in, and I saw that they do Sharia property finance.
Sharia property finance.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I thought, that's interesting. So if you do that, do you do Sharia investments? I called them up and they said, yes, they do. So I thought, okay, so that's one that I can speak to. Meanwhile, speaking to all the other ones, and a lot of the other ones, one by one, it came to the realization that I couldn't do what I wanted to do. So I came to the point where my probation period was finishing, and this is this is the wisdom of Allah. My probation period is finishing. My notice was 1 week. My notice was going to expand it to 3 months, and I thought, I need to go because I don't want to be here for another 3 months. I went to go speak to this network, and normally the networks would bite your arm off to take you on board because they see you as a cash cow. You don't bring money in, so they want you. I had an interview with this network, and I thought at the end of it, you can go to network normally in, I wouldn't want to say in your pajamas, but you can go in a way, they will take you on in most of them. But I went to this one, had an interview for 45 odd minutes, we had a conversation, and at the end they said no. So everything that I've been planning for the last...
finally found something that you wanted to do.
Yep.
And you were all like, I'm there, I'm going there.
I mean, why would they say no? No, networks don't say no.
Yeah.
45 minutes in, they said no. And I was like, look, so I've been doing this for a year at this point, or year and a half. I've been doing research and trying to make this happen. And when they said no, I was like, I was a bit shell shocked. I spoke to my wife, and I was like, look, I'm not quite so sure what to do now. And realizing my notice period, if I don't resign within the next 1 or 2 weeks, I'm going to be on a 3-month notice period. There was another network I had, which I was considering as a secondary option. So I did leave them a voicemail as well. But then I went home and I spoke to one of my colleagues. And, he's like, what happened? And I said, look, they said no. He told me, why did they say no? And I went through the reasons with him. And then he was like, well, are you going to accept that? I said, yes. They said no to me, right? So yeah, I am. So he's like, well, that's it. You're just going to give up then? I was like, well, and then, it basically, it got me thinking. And he was like, well, why don't you challenge it? Why don't you go back to them? Challenge them in terms of what they've said. Go back to them and challenge them. what do you have to lose, and what can you gain and what do you have to lose?
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, it's still going to be a no.
Yeah.
Best case scenario, it might change. So that's what I did. I spent the next 3-4 hours, put together, my notes, put together Excel spreadsheet with all my numbers and everything. And I sent that email off like 11 o'clock at night. And the next morning, 10 a.m., I had a response from the owner of the network. And I still have the email saved, but it was something to the effect of, how the heck can I say no? Anwar, you're a bloody legend, something.
What?
Yeah.
Subhanallah. So you got some mentoring or coaching from a sincere advisor.
Yeah.
And you just did your homework.
Yeah.
And you did what you were not originally planning to do.
No, if someone says no, I mean, you've seen the movies, right? You've seen the movies. In real life, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Wow.
So he responded. He goes, look, let's have a catch up in a few weeks' time. My notice period is still expiring now. So now my notice, they've signed me a probation. I've got 3-month notice period, and this was in March. Yeah, this was in March time. Subhanallah, my notice period got extended by 3 months. I must have paid about 1.5-2 grand in car repairs. I think in that 3 months, I had about £5,000 worth of expenses around the house.
Oh, really?
Right. If I had actually left and just started up the business and been on zero income from day one, that's £5,000 worth of capital. And for a new business, that's significant.
Yeah.
Also, by the time I actually got up and running, by that time, my wife had actually started working now. So by September, I moved by September, October time, and she was working. So all of a sudden, I've saved £5 grand worth of expenses, number one. Number two, it helps alleviate the financial pressures because my wife's, working as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the best rejections I've had in my entire life. Alhamdulillah, one of the best rejections. But it's not something that I could have planned.
Yeah.
But the entire journey, it was like the entire journey for me from the day that I left employed position, and alhamdulillah, I was earning a very good income. But from the day that I left, it felt like the whole entire journey that I was guided by Allah, in the sense that there was always a problem that came up, but something else, a solution always opened up. Always, there's a solution.
SubhanAllah. So if I understand this part correctly, I'll try to summarize and you can correct me.
Yeah.
So you were in a well-settled job.
Yeah.
You were progressing in your career.
Yep.
And in parallel, some seed was sown. You came across that ayah in the Quran somehow, through a lecture, through an imam, through a Jummah, whatever. And it triggered something. And that movement of the heart, the chord that was touched, you started questioning whether what you're doing professionally is aligned with what Allah wants you to do from a halal risk perspective. And then you looked into especially the CMAP that you were doing.
So, I mean, CMAP was for mortgage advice anyway. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, the qualification I've done now, I can't remember all the names of all of them.
Yeah. But that was interesting, right? Because you were using the word interest in your advice or in your day-to-day work, and this pain or the pinch was increasing. Like, really? Like, okay, am I right? And then you made a concerted effort to actually shift the career, but you had to restart almost, right?
Yes.
It's like, didn't know where to go. So you then chose a path and you started progressing in it. You reached out to the right networks. And the one that you were you felt promised about, it was very promising opportunity.
The one that gave me the flexibility that I needed.
Yeah.
So
the one that really gave you they rejected, and now you were in this limbo. It's like, oh my God, like anything that can go has gone wrong, can go wrong has gone wrong. And you then, it's a blessing of Allah that somebody advised you to challenge them. And those kind of authentic advisors, those who are trusted advisors around you, I think they play a critical role in our lives. I'm sure in your career, somebody would have been there as a mentor of you. Can you go a little bit more into those?
No, I definitely will. Like before before I go on to that, just one more thing I wanted to mention. I think it's when I look back in my career in conventional finance, which was the bulk of my career was in conventional finance. I look back and I think of how many credit cards have I sold? How many current accounts have I sold? How many mortgages have I sold? How many of those things have I sold in terms throughout my entire career? So from an interest perspective, how much of that have I been involved in? And for me, moving into the Sharia space, there's several reasons for it. First and foremost, it's for the sake of Allah. But secondly, it's, to make a positive impact to Muslims, but it's also redemption. I've done a lot of stuff on that side. So for me, it's almost about now trying to move people away from that and actually tell them, look, Islamically, this is what's permissible, and this is what's even, and then providing them solutions thereof. But also to your questions in terms of mentors, I think, one of my biggest inspirations is probably my mum, to be honest. She's someone that's came to this country at the age of 16, and which is a story with many of our, mothers and fathers. They came to this country at a very young age, age of 16, didn't know anything about how things run within the UK, didn't know the native tongue. We had a big family, there's 6 of us, 6 siblings. But alhamdulillah, she had the strength to manage all of us and to get everything done on her own. I remember thinking at the age of 10, 12 or something or the other, like, this woman she doesn't stop. It's like she's it's like she's a robot. She just doesn't stop. There's nothing, alhamdulillah. Obviously now age and thing, I've caught up with her. But she's always taught me to be fair. When it comes to trade, when it comes to business, it's always about being fair. If you hire a tradesman to your house, and I get inspiration from her, it's not about getting the best price. It's not about getting the cheapest price. Because the person that you're hiring, that person needs to survive. It's about having a fair price. Obviously, you don't want to be ripped off, but you don't want to rip them off either. So it's about doing the right thing, by people. Well, alhamdulillah, I've had good mentors within this space as well. So I've had mentors from external businesses who've had nothing to gain from me, and they've been in the conventional space. But it's those 4 stages of competence. It's the first stage is, if I remember, serves me correctly, unconscious incompetence.
Yes.
You don't know what you don't know. So if I didn't go into this space, you have no idea what you're getting into. And my journey within setting up Black Swan Wealth was exactly that. It was literally like the analogy that I gave before was that you go into a dark room and you light the candle one by one. You fumble through, find a candle, light a candle. You manage to light 3 and then finally manage to find the light switch, but only to realize there's another door there. And behind that door is another dark room and another set of candles. And that you go through that journey. I went through it for 18 months up until, we managed to get the business launched and up and running and operational.
Beautiful analogy. So your advice, so the mentors gave you advice in your career progression and professional growth related inspiration or guidance, or at least hand-holding you to make better options, but better choices. But the other example that you gave about the dark room and the navigating through that, so that must be very painful, right? Because coming from a job, and that's everything is set up, the policies, appraisals, and everything else. You're getting a salary end of the month. Here you are with the business. There is no light at the end of this tunnel, and you're just jumping in.
Alhamdulillah. But look, I was in a very comfortable position, very comfortable salary. I was sort of, they had a training management program, so I was on that to be a manager. 3 months later, my manager left, so I was next in line. But it didn't interest me because I didn't want to stay in the conventional space. But look, that whole dark room analogy, it is painful. But I would ask the question, what's the purpose? Why are you doing that in the first place, right? Is the purpose worth the difficulty?
Yes.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And for me, the purpose was. it's you're almost like I think you use the phrase of sadaqah jariyah, but it's the same thing. It's in the sense that a different analogy. You're basically helping someone move away from something that's haram. You're giving them a halal alternative, and we live in a place where debt and interest is like dust. As the hadith goes, it is like dust.
Yep.
That's the world that we live in. So if I can move some people away from then that's my purpose. So, and ultimately, if I didn't, let's say if I didn't get to do this, then at least one day, the day that I die, I can say to Allah, you know what, I tried. I tried to do this.
Because effort is in your hands, results are in the hands.
Absolutely. But I genuinely feel the entire way, I was, Allah made avenues available for me in order to move this forward.
Great. So I really, this is very close to my heart, this purpose orientation, because what I've noticed, and my research also confirms this till now, we are progressing on this for the last 6-7 years now, working with some of the top professors globally, in Boston and other places, complexity theory and the teams and relationships and all sorts of other gurus in their fields. One thing is in common, which is, if you have a strong sense of purpose, which is beyond making money, and you're producing something which is beneficial to the people or the planet, and in this case, your added benefit of you're helping people make better choices that are aligned with what Allah Ta'ala has ordered, and that's a path of blessing. And we say that in Surah Fatiha all the time, right? We path of those whom He has favored. So being able to provide a service that enables people to make better choices along those lines. I think this is amazing. This must satisfy you so much. You would sleep so comfortably, saying, I'm trying to do what I can. Allah Ta'ala has given you an opportunity, an intersection in your life where you have educated in this field and you have all the things that you need around you, but now you're using the skills that Allah Ta'ala has given you with the best of your abilities in helping others make better choices. So amazing sense of purpose.
But I've been lucky in the sense that there's so few financial advisors that are Muslim. Vast majority aren't from an ethnic minority. So vast majority aren't from the ethnic minority background. Even disproportionately, there aren't many women in this field. So I was quite privileged to actually be in the field in the first place. But then it's that sense of purpose and that sense of if you've got to answer to someone, you're going to answer to Allah someday, right? So I've got to have some sort of an answer to give. And this is my way. And like I said, inshallah, everything is in Allah's hands. Everything that we try. And for me, it's trying to make a difference, recognizing that there are so few people in this space that can do or have the potential to do what I do. They have the capability, the relevant, qualifications and stuff and experience. It puts me in a very privileged position to provide this service to other people. But at the same time, it's more than that. For me, like, I'm a process person. I like processes. So it's always about set a process, efficiency, continual review and efficiency. So in the past year and a half, that's what we've done. Built a process, built a framework, built a proposition. And now, inshallah, over the coming years is then trying to expand that and make it more available to other Muslims, or people that are interested within the ethical and Sharia compliant financial space, to try and make a difference to the Muslim population. They're trying to expand in it and give other advisors a platform to jump on board so they can be part of that journey as well.
Beautiful. Amazing. Okay, great. So we touched upon the purpose, and that brings us nicely into the segue into soul set. So how do you manage your spirituality? Being a professional Muslim, living in the UK, how do you maintain that identity of carrying this day-to-day responsibility as a Muslim? Plus, we've touched on your professional life, but we'll retouch that to make sure that soul set is covered well.
I think it's so for me, right? It's where I am right now. I'm quite lucky. It's quite easy in that space because most of the people that I deal with are Muslim professionals. Most of the businesses that I associate with are, so any accountants, solicitors, tax advisors I deal with, vast majority of them are predominantly Muslim.
Because we are the ones who are interested in Sharia compliance.
But equally, for clients that need services in terms of introductions, it makes sense for the other individuals to understand the needs of a Muslim as well.
Yes.
And who better to advise, understand than someone that is Muslim. So in that perspective, it keeps me in that Islamic environment. Like, imagine speaking to a conventional client, Maghrib time has come up. The client's not non-Muslim, Maghrib time's come. You've got to have that discussion of, I've got to go and pray now.
Yes.
So as if you're speaking to a Muslim, brothers, sisters,
let's go.
All right, let's go. Let's come back. It's a very easy discussion.
Such a lovely place to be.
Yeah. So it makes it a lot easier. But equally, I've worked in conventional for much longer than I have in this space, and I've never been one to be shy. I've always been proud. Alhamdulillah, I am Muslim. And when it comes to making provisions for prayer, the way that we have with diversity, inclusion criteria, employees do need to make provisions for stuff like that anyway. So I've never had a problem when it comes to going to Jummah prayer because we're in a meeting. We can nip away for half an hour to go to Jummah. I've never had a problem. But it's trying to stay within that ecosystem in terms of people that have a positive impact on you, whether that's from an ethical business perspective or looking at from an Islamic perspective. You hang around with people that you associate with people that what's the word? Basically have a positive impact on you.
Yes.
But I think as a business, it's I'm moving on to sort of ethics slightly, but as a business, I think core values of a business are important as well. That's something else. So for us as a business, our core values are, service, respect, value, and trust. And I think that trust is a big one. And just having it written down as a core value of the business, it makes a big difference. I swear to you, it makes a big difference just having it written down.
Really?
For me, it makes a big difference because sometimes if your mind sways and thinks, I can do things this differently, you'll make a big impact.
I'll make more money.
I'll make money. But when you've written it down there, this is what I'm giving you as a client, this is what I'm giving you, it pulls you back. Those thoughts go away.
Subhanallah.
It pulls you back.
So your purpose orientation and your business ethics tied around trust.
Yeah.
Right. So if they have trusted you in advising you the best possible options, a Sharia compliant way, you will not pull your punches. You will make sure they get the best possible options.
Look, I'll go one step further. With clients, I say to my clients as part of my speech is in terms of we put our money where our mouth is. The stuff that you recommend is the stuff that I do for myself, for my wife, for my kids. We do the same stuff. So the journey that you go on, that's the journey that I go on. And in fact, someone else's money, and I tell this to my daughter, someone else's money, it's their money. That's more important than your own money, right? And you have a higher duty to look after someone else's belongings than your own. And we treat that the same. So we don't look at people as numbers. We don't look at people as, as sales or income. You're genuinely trying to do the right thing for them, the same way that I would advise, my mother or someone else's grandmother. That's the approach that we take. But it comes back to, when it comes back into, we're speaking about the heart. But that's the whole purpose when it comes to, fiqh in Islam with respect to business. Is the cornerstone of doing business is being fair, and it's having transparency. There's no uncertainty, there's no gharar in your business contracts, right? You have certainty in terms of what each person is receiving.
Beautiful. Excellent. And then from raising children perspective, we won't go into too much detail, but the way I can see your ethos and your strengthened iman in making sure that at least you're managing your own soul set for the sake of Allah with a very strong sense of purpose. How do you ensure that at home with the family? How are you raising the children? Tell me a little bit more about it, because there are people who would benefit from this knowledge.
Look, it's a process, right? It's something that evolves with time. Something doesn't work, you change it, you try something different. I think so. My son, my daughter, she's 8. My son, he's 4.
Mhm.
And I think, look, I've got to give it's a combined effort. Husband and wife, we both need to be on board. So with my daughter, she's still nabalik, obviously, but we make sure we get involved when it comes to praying salah. And it is my wife's idea, fantastic idea. My wife's idea was, from the age of 7, you do what from the age of 7, you start with 1 namaz. From the age of 8, you do 2, and so on and so forth up until you hit 12 when you do all 5. So it's just trying to basically get your kids involved into the day to day. And look, sometimes I'm thinking I'm going to try and finish and I've got to rush, and I just do it myself. But then it is that conscious effort of getting your children involved in terms of the Islamic activities, in terms of what you do. Equally, like taking them to the masjid and having an environment in a masjid where the children can be involved and the children can be children.
Yes.
I think that's something that's helpful.
We try to make them pretend that they are adults and they need to sit down with their arms crossed and sit down. It's like listen to the lecture for half an hour. That's impossible.
Let children be children. Yes. Like I was in a mosque yesterday in Hounslow, and there's a brother there with 2 of his kids, and they're playing around, and it wasn't a mosque time. Everyone's praying, getting ready. I think getting ready for the adhan, but the children were playing. But they enjoyed being there, and I think that's something, because we go there for a purpose, right? We go there to pray, and we know our duty as Muslims. A 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, they're not going to understand that. They're not going to
not answerable either.
Well, exactly. Yeah, absolutely, they're not. But in order to bring them closer to the masjid, I think we've got to bring stuff in that the children are interested in. And I've seen some mosques, do this fantastically. There are some really sort of forward-thinking mosques that are becoming the pillar of the community.
Yeah, we have one locally as well.
Yeah,
family, the whole community loves it.
Absolutely. But it's beautiful for the entire community. But when you come here, you pray, you go home, and it's very structured, and that's it. It's just not, it's not as fulfilling. So I think, as Muslims, credit to our forefathers, our fathers or grandfathers, we do genuinely owe them everything. We stand on the shoulder of giants for them to create the foundation and the structure of everything that they built.
Those difficult times, right?
Absolutely. During the 60s, 70s, 80s, everything that they built.
Yeah.
Credit to them. They'll build everything, like the whole halal economy in terms of halal food, the masjid, the community centers.
Yes.
That's been their blood, sweat, and tears, right? But for us moving forward, how do we get the next generation involved? Given the environment that we live in, it's a secular environment. How do we bring them closer to Islam and closer to Deen? And I think one of the avenues is for the mosques to welcome the children and do stuff that genuinely would be of interest to them. Make it more fun. Don't know.
Jazakallah khair for those fascinating thoughts and the deep insights on the soul side and the purpose and the way you have chosen this career path and how you are bringing about a positive change to the, I would say, long-term sustainability of Muslims, especially through investments and related financial matters. Coming on to the second point, which I think is quite crucial. Many times, I'll give you my own example first, and then I'll tell you why it's so important for me. Mindset, learning, right? So right from childhood, I was very hardworking because my dad said, you are the only son. You have to, like, you're going to make this house run. You choose. So I never played any sport. I was just studying right now. So, but my studies were not efficient. I would study 8 to 10 hours a day easily. If it would go up to 16 hours sometimes. Would do maths all day and just keep on doing it, and then just even cramming some things that I couldn't understand. But I was good at it because I was putting in so much effort. Ultimately, results were okay, right? Always in top 5 or something. And then did my A-level equivalent, which is a matriculation there in Pakistan. Similar things. Put in a lot of effort, and I had some coaching from the tutoring, and that helped me accelerate a bit. but nobody taught me how to learn.
Hmm.
It's just, I feel just such a big gap. I came to the UK. First day on the job. It wasn't the day at job. They sent me to a very advanced level of training for 5 days. So my first 5 days in the UK as a professional in Xerox, it was in a training program taught by one of the world's gurus in that field, whom we had heard about saying, oh yeah, he invented that. And we were like, I was in the same room, oh my God, this is amazing, right? In that process, when we were exposed to this new type of learning, and this is quite a very friendly kind of environment, and somebody mentioned, we don't want hard work. We want smart work with hard work. So they said, don't just do hard work, do smart work while doing hard work.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so I do smart work, like I'm efficient. I organize things well. Like, no. You need to know what your natural preferences of learning are. And one of the training programs they sent me on was Tony Buzan's mind mapping. I was like, okay, do it, right? We started that, and they started making mind maps. And this was the first time in my life that somebody brought a name to this technique of visualizing how your mind works, right? All my life, my learning method was, if these are 10 pages of text, I'm going to make it happen with my hard work, repetition, whatever, to help my mind understand it, right? And it wasn't visual. I would try to make it visual, but only in my mind. Here, somebody gave me a technique saying, why not make a mind map and make those whatever these lines are. And I was like, wow. And he said, color code them and strengthen them. I don't follow all of those rules, but it clicked. And my learning efficiency increased 10 times at least. I could do learning just like that. Even now, it's like notebook is full of mind maps, right? This is how I think. But I didn't know that it existed, this method. I thought taking notes was a linear method. So I'm just giving you one example. There are so many other things, right? I'm still learning, still love to learn.
Cradle to grave,
Right. So I want you to share some of those techniques, some things that you might consider as normal, but they might be the gold mine for somebody else to learn.
So I think the first thing I would say, sometimes the biggest lessons come from your failures.
From failures.
That's the first thing I would say. And I think personally for me, it's not always, it's my failures that have had the biggest impact rather than the things that I've been successful at. Because the failures have taught me, or when you look at it in retrospect, why did I fail? What did I do wrong? How did it go wrong? How do I make sure it doesn't happen next time? So, it's one of those things. I had, a significant event sort of during my university days, and that impacted me for the rest of my life. That made me a more organized person. So for me, I'm highly structured. I wouldn't say I'm rigid, but I'm a structured person. I like processes, and by having a defined process, you know what happens next. And it allows you to make sure that you don't miss anything out. So when I started, this business, all right, so I'm going to submit an advice case, start to finish. So the first thing that I would do is understand what the process is, and then essentially, look, you do this, I would make a checklist. These are all the things that I need to tick off while I'm doing it. But then it's then continually reviewing and evolving it. Another thing, like, I get one of my old managers used to say, big picture and small picture people. I'm a small picture person.
Okay.
I like to understand the intricacies of how something works, because I think that's when you can add genuine value. If all you understand is the big picture, if all you understand is, a car wheels, they go around and the car moves, but how do those wheels go around? What's behind that? That would then allow you to understand how you can make the car more efficient, how you can give it more, more traction, more torque, more speed, whatever. It's understanding the little things and understanding the finer details, because by understanding the finer details, you can make adjustments which have big impacts.
Okay, so this is new. I need to absorb this and dissect this a bit. So if we go into, so that's great. It creates an inquisitive nature. So your creative curiosity, that curiosity will take you to places, because then this mic is not just a mic.
Yeah.
There's a huge sound system in the background. How do those things work? This light is not a light.
Yeah.
All of these
Yes.
things, right?
Yeah.
So, and that takes you to this infinite amount of things that you can learn in detail, right? So there must be a prioritization mechanism that you have in choosing what to go into details of, like the small picture. But take us through the process of this, because personally, I would understand the big picture and then go into the smaller picture.
I think, I mean, you need to. You've got to understand the big picture, but then it's also realizing in professional life, right, things are segmented. You go to a doctor, you go to a general practitioner. A general practitioner does everything. They might have a specialism, diabetes, pediatrics, whatever. But when you then, if you're unfortunate enough to be diagnosed with cancer, you go see an oncologist. If you have a UTI problem, you go see a urologist, you see a specialist. So it's important to understand where your specialism stops and someone else's begins, right? So, you can't, there's no point in going to the nth degree. But with the end client in mind, and with the trying to add value to the end client, how much do you need to know? How much do you need to research? And it's looking that far. There are components within that mic. Do you need to understand how each of those components are made? It's more important for you to understand how the components interact with
each other. Yes.
Not how they're manufactured, right? So it's going to that degree. So I think, so for me, that's been something that's important to me. I did, like, from an educational perspective, early life, I did really well. So, I mean, to give you a background, actually, I went to madrasa as well.
Really?
I was in an Islamic boarding school for a number of years. So we did the Islamic studies, we did conventional studies. So on the conventional studies, I was top 3. Like, math, science. I think the only one I struggled with was Urdu. So Urdu was number 10.
Same here.
I struggled with Urdu, but everything else, top 3. And then I left madrasa, year 10. So when I was around 15, came back to school. And then, to go from an environment that's very rigid, this, you have this, your entire day's planned, right? The only day you have is Saturday afternoon, you've got some free time. Sunday afternoon and Saturday evening. To then have, you come back home and all of a sudden, actually, you're not restricted anymore.
Yes.
I can go out and play with my friends, after school.
Yep.
I don't
Nobody's stopping me.
I don't need to go for 2 hours to read, to recite, or to, what's the word? I can't remember the name now. But I can't go for a 2-hour class in the evening. I don't need to anymore. And then you end up getting distracted. All your friends are there, you end up playing. And so all of a sudden, I mean, and again, this is going back to, the impact of failures, the positive impact of failures. In high school, educationally, I did not fulfill my potential at all.
Really?
I didn't. And for a number of years, beyond that, in fact, I didn't. In fact, it wasn't up until I came back into professional studies, post-university, that I realized, hold a second, look, I've got to, and like I said, I had some some mistakes in university, which made me realize I've got to be more organized. So, like, for example, when I've been studying for the last 3 years, and the last 3 years, like the last year and a half especially, it's been extremely challenging, because it's literally, I sacrificed everything. I didn't have a life. There's no free time for 1.5, up until 3 months ago, I had no free time for 1.5 years. But it was, okay, so I'm doing this course. I've got 6 months. I've got a 3-hour, 4-hour assignment that I've got to, test I've got to do. I've got to do a X thousand word courseware. I've got 6 months. How do I do this? So it was then about structuring week by week. This is what I'm doing every week. So relative to my, my target date, I know whether I'm ahead, I know whether I'm behind, I know what I need to be doing. And that level of organization it's allowed me to stay on track on all of my studies. And alhamdulillah, every single one of them, they don't do grading anyway, but if they did do grading, they all would have been on A levels, all of them. But it's having that structure.
Yes.
The capability is there. The capability has always been there, alhamdulillah. but it's having the structure in place and determination and the willingness to be able to put the effort into it.
So you make that, so break that big task into smaller pieces and then tie it to a incremental schedule kind of thing for the weeks and days
Look,
to achieve that bigger target.
I've got 400 pages. I've got 400 pages. I've got 26 weeks. Minus exam, minus coursework. I'm left with 20 weeks. 400 pages, 20 weeks. So then it's breaking down those 400 pages into 20 weeks, plus allowing revision time in between as well.
Yes.
And planning it ahead. And having that level of structure, you're no longer rushing in the last 5 days to read the 300 pages that you've still got left that you've not missed and you've not understood.
And there will be no retention for that anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then in terms of retention, that's me, 400 page. Number 1, read through the entire thing. Number 2, applying everything. And number 3, my third time I'm reading it now, is then trying different calculations and starting to see if it works. So it's not just that I've learned this formula that they're giving me here. Can I apply it to different formulas? And for me, I'm a kinesthetic learner, right? I learn by doing. And going back to that big picture, small picture thing, you apply that small picture logic. Well, if it works on this calculation, how does it work if I move this around and the calculation is different like this? And it's then, because then you have an appreciation for the finer details. If I change this just that slightly a bit, this is what the impact is.
Yes. Okay, great. So there is a iterative and incremental approach to your learning. There's a process that you have. There is a revision mechanism that you need to give it plenty of time. Then you make sure that you have considered everything. And because you are a structured, process-oriented person, you will follow it. Many people take the first step, which is plan this. So they have a target, they break it down, they plan it, and they do really well in that, but they don't follow it. So what you must have friends like that, right?
I do. And I've been like that myself.
You've been like, okay.
Yeah,
tell how do you fix that?
How do I fix it? By having it in front of your face.
Having it, so that means you visualize it.
It's there. So my schedule, in terms of my schedule when I was doing my study, I've got one more exam left. It's in front of my face every single day.
What do you mean?
Like it's printed out. It's printed out on my wall, right opposite me.
So you're in your office?
In my office.
Okay. Anywhere else in the house?
No. So I spend most of my time in my office.
So wherever you spend more time?
So wherever I spend the most amount of time is there every day. So, and I was having the same discussion with my sister last night about, we're on a trip, we're discussing outlook while we're on a car journey. But my philosophy with my things that I need to stay on top of is exactly the same. So I use folders, but folders are only for things that I'm happy for it to be tucked away. If there's things that I need to do, actions that I need to do, they're only ever in one of 2 places. And those 2 places are things that I can visualize instantly. So things that are important to me, they're always right here in front of me.
So, okay. So I want to dissect this further because this is critical for somebody to learn and for everybody, right? Including myself. That means your office space will be quite messy. No. So how would you visualize if you're doing 4 or 5 different things? Yes, you can visualize some on the wall. Then there'll be some documents or papers, whatever. Would they be spread around?
No, there was always structure.
Okay.
Tell us,
take us through that.
I don't do multiple things at a time. I try and focus on one thing I focus on one thing at a time. That's the first thing. And again, for me, it's always been about, this is the way I'm doing things. I've done this 5 times. Is this the most efficient way that I'm doing it? If I'm not, I need a process. Excel, prime example. I'll do a calculation for clients. I've done these calculations for clients 5 times now. Every time it's taken me half an hour. So I spent 2.5 hours doing these calculations. I might do this calculation another 50 times for the rest of the year. What I'm going to do is spend 5 hours. I'm going to spend 5 hours making a spreadsheet, embedding all the calculations. So the next time I need to do one, it doesn't take me half an hour. It takes me 2 minutes.
Okay.
I've saved 28 times, 50 over the year.
So one of my technology initiatives, that's the consulting and transformation business that I have. Our motto is mundane to the machine and purpose to the people. Because if it's repeatable, why are you doing it? Let the machine waste the time on it, right?
That's it.
Our intellectual capability needs to be utilized in pursuing our purpose. And that can only happen when we free up our mind and our this distractions that we have around us. So great to hear that. Wonderful. But then following that schedule, if somebody is trying and they ask you for advice, and they're asking you online for this advice, watching this video, what would you remind them of? What would you advise in getting back on track? If they've planned for 20 weeks, the first week has passed, they were okay, just like a gym membership. You go for the
Yeah, absolutely.
and now you're like, you lose your motivation, and there's a distraction there, or you don't have the intrinsic motivation to actually do it. Full stop.
If you don't have the motivations, though, there's bigger questions. Ultimately, there are bigger questions. I would usually allow a degree. So as part of that schedule, there's usually revision time or degree of buffer time. But for me, by having the structure in place, I can visualize that today is week commencing, 2nd of November. I can see whether I'm on track or whether I'm behind. If I can see that I'm behind, I know if I'm behind by 3 weeks, it's going to be a lot more. Yes, it'll be date marked. We commence in this date, we commence in that date, so on and so forth.
So it's almost like a checkpoint in your plan, and you would set the time for this, saying, I am going to review it Monday of every week, saying what have I achieved in the last week and what I'm intending to achieve this week. And if I'm on track, that's great. If I'm ahead of schedule, even better. But if I'm not, then I need to put in some extra effort, or would you change the targets then?
No, I wouldn't change.
Oh, so you didn't push the... Okay.
I would not change the targets because, yes, there is revision time. And sometimes, you do an exercise. I did an exercise with my daughter the other day, right? And you've got to match up the sentences with the words. And I was saying to her, look, you've got to do the easy ones first. Get the easy ones first. Get those 5 out of the way. The more difficult ones that you're unsure of, give that more time. Don't do it, just by that linear order. In that same respect, when I'm doing studies, there are going to be some concepts, some theories that are more difficult than others. Get the entire thing out of the way. Focus on the more complex stuff later on. Defer that to later. And that's why I allow the revision time at the end. There is always some buffer time. So it wouldn't be just, 20 pages times 20 weeks. You might be 30 pages. And then after week 5, there'll be some buffer time. After week 10, there'll be some buffer time. There'll be some revision time after week, whatever. So if I'm behind, so if I'm behind, I've got to make sure that the following week I catch up, even if it's proportionally a bit more, that I catch up. Ultimately, if you're someone, and I've been there myself, if you're someone that doesn't leaves it to the last minute, then there is a lack of determination, and you've got to realistically be questioning how we change that. I'm not sure. Is it lack of interest? I don't know. Or is there something else?
I feel this sorry to very because I have 3 teenagers at home, and I do work with a lot of professionals. I do a lot of executive advisory and coaching of youth. I feel that there is a common pattern. I don't know, it's the media, it's the culture, or I don't know if there's something that drives this last minute behavior. Can you reflect on that?
So I've been that person. I've been that person for many years. And it's just the other stuff gets in the way. The other life just gets in the way.
Because you like doing those things?
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't like going out to football? So we're just deferring the things that we don't want to do for the things that we do want to do. But the most difficult part, the single most difficult part of a task is starting it.
Oh, yeah.
That's the most difficult part. Once you've started it, and once you've done the first hour, it becomes progressively easier. You know what's ahead of you. So that is having that motivation to start the journey, and then having the structure to follow that through. Some people, alhamdulillah, are gifted with, an amazing brain. Other people like us, we've got to, or like me at least, like me, we've got to try, and we've got to have the structure in place to make it work. I've tried this cramming it 3 days before. It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. Okay, great. Excellent. Great advice. And we touched on the mindset, how you manage your learning, especially from your structure perspective. So you like looking at the overall target. Let's say it's a 6-month, 24-week target. You then say, okay, 4 weeks are for the exams and everything else. The 20 weeks remaining, You say, okay, this is the amount of work I'm going to do each week incrementally, and you're going to leave some buffers, which is a very important point that you added in. We didn't emphasize on that enough, but leaving buffers so that if you are falling behind, you have some space to breathe. Otherwise, it will keep on diverging. You're not going towards the target away from. So recovering will take much longer. Those, and then you said there's a weekly review session. So this is where you say, okay, I'm going to do my own progress review. Every Monday, I'm going to look at what I achieved in the last 1 week. And if I am on track, that's great. If I'm above or ahead of the schedule, that's even better. But if I'm behind, I need to fix this because I need to do more in these less number of days.
Correct.
To be on track for the next review. And then you also mentioned about the issue about starting, right? Because one of the most difficult things is to start.
Correct.
If you start, your mind starts bringing in all those threads and collecting all those dots, but you're deferring it because you are looking into this, imagining like, oh, I have to connect so many dots. How would I do it? And then it keeps on creating this procrastinating mind, right? So great to hear those examples. One last question on this, and we'll move on to the next set. Would you use somebody else to do the review for you, with you, so that you are held accountable? Because I feel sometimes that if you are putting yourself as accountable, you play the games, right? And the procrastinating mind would find excuses for that.
So it's been many years since I've sort of done studies, like university type studies. So the degrees that I've done so far, they've all been more professional based studies. So historically, absolutely, we would do stuff as a group, but now I don't have that privilege anymore. I've got to do it on my own.
So you need to find that intrinsic motivation to stay on track.
It's only on you. So it's using. So we do have we might have form tutors, for example, for argument's sake, that we can go back to for questions. But it comes down to you to stay on track. And if there's something that you don't understand, and you're going around that first try, skip it. If you don't fully understand it first time round, don't worry about it. Because once you come around it on the second try or the third try, maybe there's other concepts within that study that links in and makes it easier to understand this. So it doesn't always make sense to spend too much time. It's like, when you do an exam, right? You're in a timed exam, you come across a question really, really difficult. Just leave it, move on to the next one, come back to that one later.
Do what you can do first.
Exactly. And the same thing with studies. Leave it till later on.
So I think this is all related to risk management. And we'll talk about that after the sets in the business as well. But coming to this final point on, there was very disciplined, kind of a very high achiever. Recently I was advising and I coached him for a few sessions. And he came up with this just unbelievable plan. I was like, are you sure you want to do this? It was starting 4 a.m. every day and then achieving all those years. Like, would you really? He said, don't worry, I'll do it. But I want you to be my sounding board. I want you to, when I do my tracking or review, I want you to do it for me. I was like, okay, I'm not convinced that you'll be able to do it, but if you're so committed, I can't stop you. There are extraordinary people out there, like beyond my imagination. So I'll let him do it. But within a month or so, he realized that
it's not cheap.
Because you get tired, right?
You do. So look, I'll give you an example of what my life was up until July. So I was, in the morning, wake up in the morning, get the kids ready for school. So get both my kids ready. My wife's gone to work. My next door neighbor takes my daughter. I take my son, drop him off at nursery at 9:15 or whatever, or 9 o'clock in the morning. I come back to the office, 9:15, work until 2:45. So under 6, 5.5 hours.
No distraction. Full focus.
But then from 2:45, pick up my son. I'm with my children now up until 6 o'clock. My wife then comes back home. She picks them up. She's with them till 6 till 8. 6 till 8, back to work again. 8 till 9, we put them to bed. 9 till 10/1, I'm studying. That was like 7 days a week, or 5 to 7 days a week.
For how long?
That was probably for like 9 months.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That's the price you pay, right?
Wow.
But what price, what price are you prepared to pay? Number one, what price are you prepared to pay? Number two, as you said, is it achievable? Now, for me, I knew that and for me, I had a goal. Like, this is before this age, I want to get all my professional studies done.
Yes.
So it's sort of working to that goal. So I knew, look, this is it. I just need to do it. I had the structure in place, and it's just a matter of whether I put the time in. There was no free time. There's no such thing as free time.
No free time. Right. So we are into this very emotional side of things now.
Okay.
How do you manage your emotions and things like that? We would talk about it. Okay, tell us.
Yeah. So my wife moans about me about this. My wife's the emotional one.
Okay.
I'm the
Rock.
I'm the rock, basically. I'm the guy that gets stuff done. But no, it's I don't know. I mean, emotionally, it's different, isn't it? The older generation didn't show as much emotion. We try and compensate with that with our children. So I do emotionally, yes, absolutely. But it's with my children and my family, I try to do actively, I guess. But in terms of business, it is hard. It is genuinely hard not to not to get down sometimes and feel upset if things aren't going your way. For me, it's always been the fact that it's been a bigger purpose. That's the reason why I'm doing it, and that's been my driver. But there have been times where I've thought, is it worth doing? Because of how difficult and how challenging it's been. I think having that support in place is really good. Having that sounding board. So, for example, I do have, alhamdulillah, my wife, she's been absolutely amazing. She's really, throughout my entire career, when we first got married, she was earning more money than me. But, she's been prepared to take a step back to help with the kids and, everything else that she does behind the scenes. So then I can try and push us collectively, push us all forward. So, like, with her, for example, we're completely transparent. We don't hide anything. We discuss everything. There's no secrets. So if there are things that are happening with the business, those are things that are discussed with her. And sometimes she'll give me a different perspective on things, which is helpful. I think it's important to have, if you do have someone as a sounding board, it's important to have people that are constructive and not critical. I mean, constructive criticism is fine, but at the same time, someone that does it in a positive way, because I have had criticism from other individuals, and sometimes it's been done in a destructive way. So, it's criticism with a purpose, right? With a purpose to help. But I'm not, I don't know. I'm very much and I would describe myself as your typical 60s man, whatever that, says about me.
When was the last time you cried?
The last time I cried was the 21st of December, 2021.
21.
No, that was the last time I cried.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's 3 years. Okay.
And
I
mean, there might have been other 21st of Decembers that I cried, since that 3 years ago.
So there must be a good reason for this. But a rock like you would shake in those times. I think the reason why I'm asking is, I don't want to go too much into personal stuff.
Yeah.
But there is this stereotyping of men being these like a rock. And I don't have any emotions. Emotion is a girly thing. Like, tell us more.
Well, we go through it as well. Yeah. All of us go through it as well. I guess it's, in Islam, we have roles, right? We have a role. Our wives, our children, we all have our roles. And even though we go through those challenges, I think to a degree, we've got to be strong for our spouses and for our families. But at the same time, if you are someone that is truly struggling and you are struggling to cope, then, there's no shame in getting professional help. I'm an advocate for that. But we all have limits in terms of what we can handle ourselves. And if you get to that point where we are struggling, then there's no harm in calling out for help.
Yes.
Yeah.
And okay, so we talked about a little bit about stress.
Mhm.
About what about anger? How do you manage anger?
How do I manage anger? It's something that I continue to work on. We all have our shortcomings. Sometimes I could, especially with kids, you ask them to do something 5 times, they still don't good do it, and yes. So
Wait till they
yeah,
my God.
it is.
So once they go into teenage, it's like even 5 times is not enough.
That's it. So I don't, and I tell my kids, look, I don't want to be angry. I want to be happy. I want you to be happy. I want all of us to be happy. But this isn't helping. But then it's thinking about, and it's what we were saying before. Going back, all right. So I've become angry. I've made a mistake. Why did I get angry? What can I do differently to change it so that doesn't happen next time? And it is so that's my methodology of trying to get past it. There aren't many things that make me angry, but I do remember watching something around children. I saw, I think, a YouTube video or something or the other, and they were saying that children are naturally, they're developed to push you, to see how far they can push you.
Okay.
So if you've got to ask them 6 times, and on the 7th time you get angry and ask them, they know they can push you 6 times. They know the 7th time is the time that's serious. That's the time you're going to take action.
But would they keep pushing?
Yes.
So they'll try the 7th time
They will
as well.
try. Yeah. So if it's always the 7th time, they're not, all right, that's how far I'm going to get. That's my limit. So it's then trying to push that limit back. Actually, it's not the 7th time. I'm going to ask you twice. If you don't listen to me the 3rd time, then there are consequences. So it's the point at which
so you don't keep on adding, you actually bring it back.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about detracting for that and making the consequences come sooner. And hopefully those consequences don't need to be shouting. There are, getting angry over that. It is something else. Whether it's, hit them where it hurts, take one of their toys away, take some of their pocket money away. Okay. It doesn't have to be getting angry. I think there are other ways. And children pick up with stuff like that. And I do hear, and I think we all need to be, as parents, we all need to be better. I say to myself first and foremost. I sometimes hear about things that children say or do in school, young children. They've got that from somewhere. They've heard that. The language that they're using, they've heard that from somewhere. And it's, so, and it's from us, it's as adults, as their guardians and, their caregivers, they heard it from us. So it's important that we control ourselves and show them how a Muslim should behave, so then they can carry that forward to their peers and friends and schools and whatever else.
Yeah. It will be interesting to hear from you again on the same topic once yours are in teenage, because I've heard these and now.
No, it's difficult. I know what children, they are the most, like my kids, alhamdulillah, they have been the greatest blessings to me. Greatest blessings. Yeah. But they are also my hardest challenge. So they are.
Agreed. Okay. And I think that's where our emotions need to be carefully considered, because too much ease creates a problem. Too much challenges, if you create everything very strict, that creates a problem. There's a fine balance, and then these balance shifts with the right reasons in different directions.
Yeah, I mean, there was a saying something about strong men make weak societies, weak men, and that is so true. Yes, we do need to be strong and we do need to be firm, but we do need to be kind as well, and we do need to show our children that we do care and we do love them, and that we are there if something goes wrong, if there's something that they're ashamed of, something that they've done, they can come to us and they can speak to us. That level of that safety net needs to be there.
Okay, excellent. Okay, that's great. Another very interesting topic. I would love to speak for hours on this with you, because I'm learning so much. But we'll have to, in interest of time, we'll move on to the next one, which is the health set. So how do you stay healthy, fit, mentally and physically?
I think that's something that I've struggled with since COVID. Since COVID, that's been really difficult, because before my job was about being out on the road. You go to, you're seeing clients 2 or 3 meetings a day from one place to another place to another place. You almost, to a degree, you didn't have to go to the gym. You just stayed active. Whereas since COVID, it's been extremely challenging. And then eat out to help out or whatever. All of those things that they had, it really helped away. And that's it. It really helped my stomach. It did, yeah. Take away 3 times a week. And then, you're at home all day.
So you find the excuse, oh, I'm helping that restaurant. That's it. Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was so hard. That was so challenging. And like for me, because it's office-based, and now, I mean, one of the good things that have come out, I say this, one of the good things that has come out of COVID is the fact that the whole working remote, or, the doing stuff via video conferencing, so when I worked at a financial institution many, many years ago, they paid £50,000 per room to kit out a room for video conferencing.
Oh, wow.
£50,000 a room.
50,000.
And this was a national business. They did that up and down the country, thousands of branches. They did that, 50,000 a room. COVID came, and you can do that with 100 quid.
Yeah.
You can buy a second-hand phone for 50 quid, £50, and you can do that now.
Yeah.
So that side of it is pushed that along significantly. But then what it does mean, most of our clients, unless the cases are quite complex, it generally tends to be remote.
Yeah.
So that makes it quite challenging. So for me, it's like, with a vein of simplicity, keeping things simple. And it's been very difficult for me to do anything up until recently, just because of the studies and the children and everything else that I've had. But recently, what I've incorporated into my routine is every morning, drop my kids off to school, and straight away after that, I basically go for a walk for 5K.
Okay.
Every morning. And that's
5K every morning?
Every morning before I do anything.
Walk?
Yeah. At the moment. So, I mean,
how long does it take?
How long does it take? It's about 45 minutes in that region. But every morning before I start working.
Okay.
And that basically then gets me in the office at sort of, 9:30, and then I'll slowly start my day. So I mean, so from the health perspective, that's what I'm trying to do at the moment, along with trying to be a bit conscious of, the 3 times a week takeaway days have gone a bit. So I'm just trying to be a bit more conscious of what I'm eating. It doesn't help the fact that my wife is a baker. I mean, she works for the NHS, and she does baking on the side as well. And like her cakes, once you've had her cakes, you can't go back to a normal, supermarket cheesecake. You can't go back. So that does make it a bit more difficult. But it's trying to sort of stay away from that. So I'm a sucker for a chocolate bar, yeah.
Before you know it, with that kind of dessert at home, amazing quality. I see.
Yeah.
And you're getting double the reward, right?
Yeah.
So you're doing, enjoying the food.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plus you're doing appreciating your wife, which is a sadaqah.
Absolutely.
And then ultimately it's a double whammy, right? So you said, I'll eat more to
help you.
More sadaqah. And so it's like, okay.
But it doesn't, it's not helpful for my guts. So, yeah. But at the same time, it's, I mean, we say we've been doing this for, so long, but it's just trying to get the kids involved as well. So during the summer, like we go to zoo, and, every weekend we go to the zoo, take the kids out. But it's trying to get them to have that healthy lifestyle. So when I was a kid 20, 30 years ago, we'd be out on our bikes and playing football every day.
Every day.
Every day. But that was the norm. That's what all of us did.
Yes.
No one does anymore. All the kids are all stuck at home now.
There's no street cricket anymore, nothing.
But that was really common.
Health and safety has become a bigger hazard.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. So it's, so I do try, from that perspective. It is definitely a work in progress. I think, what's the word? Between work and children, it does sort of pretty much take up most of my life. Inshallah, my studies, I've got one more exam that I'm due to do. And like I said, my target is before a certain age, I'll get everything finished. That's happening in February. So before February, I just got to get one last exam done.
Okay.
And then I'm done for the rest of my life. But then that would then free me up to give me a bit more time then.
Great. Excellent.
Yeah.
So morning walk is your key health
at the moment.
And others are like reducing the eating out, and then especially junk eating out.
Yeah.
And or takeaway. And then also trying to manage the intake at home as well, making sure some healthy choices are made.
Healthy choices, and just being conscious of sort of portion sizes, and that's the thing, right? It's quite easy to go for seconds.
Yes.
So it's just something I was trying to be conscious of. Okay, again, it's a work in progress. I think it's almost like the day that, maybe it's the day that you get married or the day that you hit 30. I got married roughly when I was 30. It all goes downhill.
After that, I've seen people, their tummies come out as if they're trying to.
It all goes downhill. Whether it's marriage or 30, it's one or the other. But it's just, everyone tends to put weight.
Seriously, by like very fit nephews and those who got married around 30, the next time you meet them 6 months, even within 6 months or a year, it's like, uncle, right? It's like wide and properly fat.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing to yourself?
So I don't know what it is. I don't know. I think maybe it's like comfort food, or the food that the wives make is obviously, alhamdulillah, she's doing a good job.
Makes it.
Yeah.
Probably they get some more this feeling of, I used to have so much free time, I would play and be active, and now I'm at home and food is being served. Previously, carefree kind of life, right? So that kind of probably extra comfort is created.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. So that's great. So we've touched on the soul set, the mindset, the heart set, and the health set. And that is from your personal perspective and bit of professional perspective. Well, I want to shift the dial, and we won't do too much. Okay. But this is kind of a rapid fire near the end. What we're doing. What we'll do is, I'll ask you what are the tips that you have for these from a business perspective. Okay, guys. So we're into this rapid fire mode now.
Okay, sure.
I'm going to ask you similar questions, but we have asked. They were generally from your personal perspective. We're going to shift towards business side now. Okay. And these are generally tips, tricks, techniques, recommendations. And you can just share the technique and describe it in a couple of sentences. Sure. Okay. For a business to succeed, what are the 3 things they need to do?
Oh my gosh. Have a purpose. It's going to be having a purpose beyond profit, right? Absolutely.
Purpose beyond making profit.
Purpose beyond profit. Cash flow would be another one. So just making sure, how long realistically or even conservatively would it take for your business to get up and running? What's your plan B? What's your plan C in terms of if it doesn't proceed? What other options do you have in terms of raising capital? And if all fails, what other options do you have of going back out to market in terms of, if you had to? Joel. Okay. And part C, I don't know the last one.
And you do with finances?
What's that with finances?
Yes.
Sorry, how do you mean?
So business advice for those who are new to the business.
Yeah.
What is the financial advice? Not necessarily official.
Oh, financial advice. So I don't primarily deal with businesses. I primarily deal with individuals. So that's more sort of from an accounting perspective. And then I think the other thing is rather than trying to sell a product to a client and to a person, to a consumer, and I'm going sort of by Tim Cook's now from Apple, but rather looking at from the client's perspective in terms of what product they need, taking that angle.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next one is the mindset.
Okay.
So how should the businesses create a learning environment? When I say business, in your case especially, it could be your clients, people who are high achieving professionals, who have some sorts of savings. How can they learn more on investing and things like that?
So from a client's perspective, if it's from a client's perspective, then there are a number of articles available online that you can have a look at. There are a number of books available as well that you can consider when it comes to basics, the foundation of investing. To get started off investing, a lot of people think about stock picking. Stock picking is one of the highest risks ways to get into investing.
Highest risk?
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to stock pick, you're not diversifying your risk at all. The most simplistic way to get into investing is to look at a well-diversified mutual fund. That's the easiest.
Diversified?
Mutual fund.
Mutual fund.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to get. The most simplistic investment wrapper is an ISA. You get £20,000 tax-free, they can invest. Now, this isn't me necessarily saying that is the right investment strategy for everyone, but that is probably the most simple way for someone to get into the market.
And most of the people don't even know. They think stock market is the way, or the crypto is the way, and right now Bitcoin is going up. And so, let's throw all the money in there.
I think Bitcoin's going up right now, but then where have you been for the last 2 years?
Yeah, probably for more than that, right?
But so it's And again, chucking all your eggs into one basket, into crypto for argument's sake. We don't tell clients not to do crypto, but it's been realizing in terms of having that level of diversification that's required to maintain a sustainable portfolio. So 10-15%, top end in terms of crypto, someone wants to have it, fine. But any higher than that, or especially if you're leveraging, borrowing money to go into crypto, but you don't have an emergency fund and you put everything into crypto,
Yes,
it's a very, very high, it's a reckless strategy.
reckless strategy. Okay, great. So and for Sharia compliant mutual funds and Sharia compliant ISA options, do they exist?
Yeah, they are. So I mean, sometimes there's this misconception that ISAs are inherently haram. ISAs aren't.
Okay.
ISAs are a tax wrapper. That's all they are.
Okay,
They dictate how the money's taxed. That's all.
that's it.
That's it. So with an ISA, it basically means there's no capital gains tax, there's no income tax when you come to dispose of the money. That's all it is. So what you have within the ISA is what makes it haram or halal.
And that's where your advice comes in.
Yeah. So if someone has a cash ISA from your high street bank, it's interest-based, so it's not permissible. If you have an investment ISA, but it's conventional, not permissible. If you have an investment ISA, stocks and shares ISA, but it has Sharia compliant investments in, then that's fine.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. And all of these things, your ISAs, your pensions, they're just tax wrappers. They just dictate tax. That's all they do.
Okay, wonderful. That's great. Next one is the hard set. So emotionally, when a loss is made, especially in your area, right? So investment there's a risk, right?
Yeah.
Everybody says, yeah, there's a disclaimer.
Yep.
So how do you manage emotion in that? Give me 3 tips.
I think when there's a risk that's been made, we tell all clients when it comes to investing, it's part of the journey. It is going to be a roller coaster. It is there for the long term. So there's a saying within the investment market that it's not about trying to time the market, it's time in the market.
Okay.
So how long you stay invested for versus try and buy and sell and stock trading, because stock trading is very difficult to get it right. And even if you get it right today,
Yes,
it becomes more difficult to get it right tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after, and the day after. And that's something that professional fund managers struggle with, let alone novice investors. And they have a team and they have the support and they're the tools available. So stay in the market even if there are difficult times. And in fact, if there are difficult times, if you've got money, consider paying more money in.
okay. And that's it's a kind of oxymoron for many people, because they're seeing markets are going up. Yeah, let's put some money in. That's the worst time to go into the market, right?
Yeah.
You should have been there when it was right.
So I think when others are greedy, you should be fearful. And when other ones are greedy, and when they're fearful, you should be greedy.
Okay.
So when the markets are down, you have something like COVID, you have something like the 2000 financial crisis. That's the time to buy, because then unit prices, they are priced lower. You're effectively buying a discount into the asset.
Okay. And then let's say there was somebody who has struggled with this. They made a mistake. They lost, or not even made a mistake. They made good investments, but they lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
How should they manage their emotion?
So when it comes to investing, we never invest more money than people can afford to lose. So first and foremost, with all of our clients, you've got your emergency fund. That's your
Emergency fund.
Okay. You've got to have that regardless. So that's your 3 to 6 months worth of expenses, or your net income, for argument's sake. So you have that first and foremost. You then have it. You hold back in your planned expenses. I want to go on holiday. I want to go on Hajj. I want to buy this. I want to buy a car. You keep that money back.
Okay.
Beyond that, then whatever money you've got left over, that's your money we can consider investing for.
Okay.
And then dependent on how long you're investing for, we then look at the level of risk that you can afford to take with that money.
And then you help diversify.
Yeah. So if someone, let's say, for example, someone says, look, someone's 55, or I want to retire at 60. I want my money at 60. Then realistically, we're not going to go high risk with it. We're going to manage that risk more conservatively. So the maximum they can lose on that would be lower.
Yes.
But equally, their maximum gain won't be as much either. But it's more,
It was a moderate or moderate kickers.
so it's more important to manage that downside risk.
And the implicit answer to the question of managing emotion is, if you have the emergency fund, if you have this ability of seeing the runway of the next 6 months or so,
Exactly.
even if it has gone down, there shouldn't be an emotional moment, right? Yeah, it's been down, it'll come up.
Exactly. You manage that.
Okay.
You stay in. So it can be difficult, especially if someone's going through that journey the same first time.
Yes.
But when we look at historical data going back 100 years,
Oh, yes.
it's happened many, many times before. So don't think about that. That's money for the future. Focus on your now. Focus on your emergency. Focus on your planned expenditure. And as long as that's been done properly, you don't need to worry about the other bit.
Okay, excellent. So that covers the hard set. And coming to the health set, from a business perspective or an investment perspective, what are the biggest markers of your investment health or your business health? Any tips on that? Like the pointers we can pick up saying, okay, those are the points you need.
Yeah. When it comes to investment health, there's a purely investment answer. And with investments, we always measure investments against the benchmark or peers in terms of how they're performing. But I would say that only paints half the picture, because investments should not be taken in isolation.
Yes.
You've got to consider your wider financial planning. Because I come across many, many clients for several £1 million of property estates. And on face value, it looks fantastic. Problem is, if they were to die tomorrow, there's a £1.5 million inheritance tax liability that HMRC is going to take on second death. So it's not just about looking, and that's why it's so important to seek advice and get appropriate advice. It's not just about understanding what you've got, but it's understanding the wider implications of it.
Yeah.
What are the tax implications of what you've got? Is it adequately diversified? What's investment performance? The wrappers that you invested in. It's taking all of those things into account when it comes to financial planning.
Yes, excellent. This is a very important point. People generally invest and say, oh, yeah, I want that return and that return.
Yeah.
They forget that if they're gone, somebody else will have to pay the bill, a huge bill. Could be inheritance tax, could be anything else. And it's a waste.
And the other thing that I would say, look, is for Muslim investors, there is a regulatory framework in the UK to protect retail investors.
Okay.
So you've got the FCA register. So any firm that's taking your money, that's investing money for you, if they're not on the FCA register, you need to ask the question why.
Need this, okay.
Because any investment advisor, all of us need to be registered. So that's the first thing. And I do, unfortunately, and I'm not going to name names, but unfortunately, over the last year, I think I've seen 2 major Muslim-focused firms / platforms turn out to be fraudulent. So this is your money. Take care of your money, because you've worked hard to earn it. Make sure the person that you're dealing with is properly regulated. If they are, then your money, within the regulatory framework, there are safety nets. They're available. If they're not properly regulated, you don't have those safety nets. If that company goes under, they're limited by, the limited liability companies. Your money's been fraudulently used. The company doesn't have the funds to pay you back. I'm not sure what legal recourse you have. FCA regulated firms are very different.
That's great. Excellent. Very, very good advice. Thank you very much. I think, again, this is very relevant to those who are professionals in their mid-40s, like what they call midlife crisis guys.
Hopefully not.
Those who have some spare money, right? And they should be investing. They should have started 20 years ago to start invest, but at least they have the money now. Looking at these Ponzi schemes or something that's too good to be true. Yeah, so don't just jump for it. It has to be FCA regulated and the Sharia compliant filter, and then take advice, right? Why not take advice?
So apart from seeing these 2 schemes fail and multi-million pound firms, millions of pound lost, I had a client the other day, saying 25% returns, and like 25% returns, like that's huge. 25% annually, that's a huge return. You've got to be cautious. If it's the old adage, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Within investing, it's the long game. It's a long game, and it's being patient, and it's about staying in the market, and it's about the compound returns.
Yes.
To give a very simplistic answer, you invest £100. Let's say you double your £100, and I'm going to keep the numbers simple. you double your £100 by the end of your 10-year period. You got 200. By the end of your 20-year period, your 200 is now 400, and by the end of that, the third decade, that 400 is now 800. So it's the compounding that has the biggest impact to your investments.
One could be controversial, but I think
Yeah.
it's a realistic question is, when you look at the rate of returns, various funds or mutual funds, your equity funds, or all sorts of other options, one thing is common. Rental seems to be the least return investment.
I mean, rental as in
So you have a house, you buy a house and you rent it out.
residential
Yes,
renting.
residential.
So residential renting, the government has practically been at war with residential landlords over the last 5 years.
Yes.
So in terms of legislations that they've brought in over the last 5 years, it's just making it progressively more difficult. Capital gains tax, right?
Yes.
For landlords, higher. Well, at least it was up until the 30th of October. They pay higher rates they did pay higher rates than everyone else. Historically, you'd be able to offset the interest element as an expense.
Yeah.
But you can't anymore. You get some relief, you get basic tax relief, but you don't get the full relief anymore. Stamp duty, it was always higher.
Yeah.
Now it's increased even more. So you have a surcharge on that. And then inheritance tax is still inside your estate for inheritance tax purposes.
Yes.
And then you've got the renters' rights bill. So I don't know when this is going to be, this is going to go live, but the renters' rights bill, that's another thing in terms of making legislative changes to landlords. And there are, for example, removing the Section 21, which is non-fault tenancy evictions, they're removing that. And then the way that the contracts are formulated, they're going to become open-ended rather than fixed term. So this has happened over a number of years, and a number of landlords have come out as a result of it. And property, like we saw a huge, a big run within the property market from the early 2000s. My question is, how much longer will that continue for, number one? And the other thing is to look at property as a well-diversified. So if you've made 100% on a property, amazing. If you pay 40% tax on it, your net gain is only 60.
Yeah.
So it's actually thinking about it, again, as part of that wider picture. And if it's someone that's in their, 50s, 60s, 70s, then they need to seek proper advice in terms of what else can be done to make that as tax efficient as possible so it can be given to their descendants.
Yeah. Otherwise, all their life, they've been adding the taxed income into an asset, which ultimately will be super taxed after they pass away, right?
You paid 20 to 45% tax already.
Yes.
And then when you die, you're going to end up paying
another 40.
So it's just, so you just got to be mindful of that. So people seem to think property is the easy way to make money, but if you have a leveraged property, you have finance against the property. Realistically, if your tenants aren't paying you rent for 2 months, in most scenarios, you're out of profit by not receiving the rent for 2 months. So let's say now they don't pay you rent for 2 months the first year. It's only up until they don't pay you rent for another 2 months the second year that you can actually ask to evict them.
Wow.
Because they've got to be at least minimum 3 months in arrears with the new legislation when that comes in before you can evict them.
Yes. So you've done the income loss.
So you've not made profits for potentially for 2 years. You then got to take them to court to evict them now.
Yes.
How long is that going to take?
And cost you a lot of money.
How long is that going to cost you? How long is that going to take?
Take you as well.
If the tenant then starts paying rent again,
what can you then? I think it has happened to multiple friends in nearby.
So once you take them to court,
and they were like going crazy. They were like, this is like a proper scam that they're going through.
So I think that's the thing, right? You've got to go in with it, with your eyes wide open in terms of the level of risk that you take. And if you end up going into it, look at the tenants that you're taking on board. Make sure that you've done the adequate due diligence. If you're a landlord, yes, absolutely support your tenants. Do the best thing by them, but make sure that you cover yourself and you protect yourself as well.
Okay, wonderful. So that's great. So I'll try to summarize the key things that we just discussed. And it's fascinating. Jazakallah for the great wisdom that you just shared. From your early childhood, you had this inspiration from your mom, who raised those 6 children and she was like clockworks and amazingly productive, that she's just done so much around you. And she came to this country at the age of 16 knowing nothing, and now she's raised all of you, and mashallah, you're doing so well. Moving on to the mentors, you got some professional mentors in your life, and they helped you, advised you in moving on to the right, taking better choices. And the special one who asked you to challenge a rejection, which is just, it looks small, but it changed your life. Absolutely. It's a blessing of Allah to have such a trusted advisor. Then you moved on to this financial side, and we won't go into too much detail of your independent financial advisory, but we'll go into the life related 4 sets we talk about. So the soul set, mindset, heart set, and health set. In your soul set, you are very purpose driven. Your change of career, choice of career, recent choices of pursuing this, it's all tied to purpose, which energizes you, which makes you jump off the bed, and that kind of thing. And one of your key advices for a business to grow and for a professional to grow, they need a strong sense of purpose, which is beyond making money. If a doctor is becoming a doctor for making money because the doctors are rich, it's not the right motivation. There's purpose is missing in that. So ultimately, you will lose motivation, and that will be a bigger loss. You also mentioned about trust. It was all about how you establish trust and you make it a priority for yourself. You write it down and make it visible. Make sure that no interaction happens without keeping that in mind, that I am here to establish trust, and this trusted advice will benefit somebody, not just me. It's a fair business. Going on to the mindset, you shared some great learning techniques as well. So creating those checklists, process orientation, the breaking down the bigger challenges, the bigger problems, creating a schedule, creating a monitoring mechanism, and taking feedback and continuously improving, and creating some buffers in that as well. You also talked about the heart set, managing emotions. And if we have enough contingency and risk planning, and then looking at the longer picture or at a longer duration, you look at those things and then you plan, and there are lesser opportunities of becoming emotional as unnecessary. Yes, unexpected things happen. That is another discussion we'll have. Then one most important thing from that perspective was constructive criticism. So we need people who criticize us constructively in a positive way, so that we can improve. If the criticism is negative or not done in the right way, that same positive thing can be turned negative, and it actually has detrimental effects on health and on growth. The last one was the health set. We talked about how the emergency funds and how do you manage the, so from a physical perspective, you go for a 5K walk every morning, or try to, which is great, amazing. It's a sunnah as well, so walking, and then doing it early morning gives you, energizes you, refreshes you, and makes sure that you have this me time. Absolutely. And when you come back, you're fully fresh, and then there's focus time to work after that without any distractions. You are quite focused, you mentioned earlier as well, and that focus helps you achieve things. And then you are also working on reducing the takeaways and the healthier choices in food as well. From a business perspective, you also mentioned about investments and how to protect your investments, how to take the better choices which are more compliant, and ensure that as you are taking risks in these investments, you better take advice from those who are sincere and trustable, like you.
No, alhamdulillah, we'll do what we can to help. But there are, for people that's starting off, there are robo advice firms within the UK that would do it within a robo advisory framework. To start off with, you can consider them. But if there is anyone that's new to the journey, and that's just looking for some guidance, then look, for us, there are 2 sides to this business. Yes, it's about providing a solution to people, absolutely, but it's trying to help you educate people as well. So yes, it's driven by a purpose and not purely by profits. And part of that purpose is trying to help people understand. So if it is, even if there's no financial gains, we'll have to sit down with people for half an hour and explain to them, give them more clarity about their position, and then hopefully, inshallah, give them some guidance in terms of how to proceed.
Wonderful. That's great. Any final advice to the audience, to this current generation and the upcoming youths?
I think there's nothing that I can say new that hasn't been said already, to be honest. I look back at my own friends and my associates and people that I've worked with in the past, and I look back on the ones that have gone far and the ones that haven't, and there's a clear difference. And it's not rocket science, and we all know it. The ones that do get ahead is they try. And even if you're not a risk taker, you don't have to be a risk taker. You can stay within the employee world. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. But they keep their head down, they work hard, they stay out of trouble. It's not rocket science. It's simple things. It's simple things.
Easier said than that.
It is. We've all had a younger year, right? So it is. But being a father now, you see that in hindsight. I see why my dad did what he did. I see what my mum, why they told me not to do things or to do other things. I see that. So your parents are, they do what's in your best interest sometimes.
To the best of their understanding and ability.
Correct. Yeah.
On a side, and this will be a cut and added to somewhere else, but I just realized for youth, they might not have big savings, but they have a whole life with them. They might have some savings in thousands. Or
right.
So how should they start investing? What would be your advice?
For youths, the most simplistic way and the safest way to start investing is to look at a robo-advice practice. So you've got the likes of 𝐷𝐻𝐿, for example. I think Simply Ethical do have a robo-advice element as well. So those types of firms would give the opportunity to work, very much within a very scripted model. And for lower amounts of savings, those things are quite perfect. If you were to then do your research yourself, you can consider investment platforms with funds. And the next stage up is then, the next risky one is then looking at actual selecting individual stocks, which is a lot higher risk, and you've got to be prepared to put the time in. Number one, do the amount of research. Number two, and you can't just sit in it and leave it. It is something that you need to review and manage and stay on top of. I think don't be sort of what's the word? Don't focus on shiny high numbers and numbers beyond that sound high and extortionate, because quite often they could they may not be legitimate. I think that's probably the best thing to say. They may not be legitimate. So just be conscious. If you are investing, just make sure the platform that you're using, the investor that you're using, they are FCA regulated, because then that would mean you are protected. In the event of insolvency, you're protected. In the event of complaints, you get arbitration service as well. If you do something that's unregulated, then you're doing that completely at your own risk. If it goes sideways, any resolve is down to you. You'd have to take them to court yourself, to the small claims court, and manage it yourself.
Which is extremely expensive.
It's time consuming, it's expensive. So, stick to the robo-advisors for younger people. Stick to the robo-advisors. Stick to FCA regulated businesses, and don't get, don't become like a moth when you see a big bright number. Don't run towards it. Do your due diligence before you get on board.
Wonderful. That's great. Jazakallah khair. Really benefited from your knowledge, and Jazakallah khair for sharing this.
Okay. Happy to help. So Jazakallah. Thank you for having me.
Okay.